Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Flame Emperor episode number 342 based on novel. So let's start. The powerhouses in the early stage of 6-star Xiao Yan are still quite strenuous. Looking at Chen Shi, who was getting weaker and weaker in front of him, Xiao Yang shook his head and said, being able to arrest this guy also made Xiao Yang use a lot of methods, such as the fighting spirit of immortality and the fighting skills of pressing the bottom of the box. However, Xiao Yang's ability to kill Chen Shi so easily has a lot to do with Chen Shi's indifference. After all, although Chen Shi is cautious, the pride in his bones is the key to his downfall. If you ask a 6-star fighting immortal to deal with a 5-star fighting immortal, you need to take out all the strength, that is too weak. Boy, if you kill me, the strong men in the Senate will definitely rip you off. Chen Shi, who was constantly tortured by the undead fire feather, couldn't help roaring. His figure became more and more illusory. The fire burned, the soul body became more and more illusory, and it was vaguely distorted and ugly. Fall down. Xiao Yang simply smiled when he heard the words. The body of the undead ghost above his body burst out with faint rays of light, and shot it directly. After a while, Chen Shi, who was as arrogant as the 6-star Xiao Yan in the early stage, completely fell into Xiao Yang's hands, and all the remaining power was swallowed up by the undead ghost, or burned into ashes by the undead fire. Crack. With the fall of Chen Shi, this area easily disintegrated, and Xiao Yang's body quickly returned to the hall. Where's Yuan Feng? Just returned here, and before he found Yuan Feng's figure, Xiao Yang looked around suspiciously. Go in and take a look. After a while, a void in the hall trembled strangely, where Yuan Feng and several people came from the battleground, so that's why. Yuan Feng, although your power is tyrannical, you are trying to intercept the two of us with one person's strength, but it is a bit of a fool's dream. Now the lamp is running out of oil, and it's time to fall. In the void, there is a strange cyan picture as a whole. In the picture, countless water currents are rolling, and above the water current, Yuan Feng's figure is crumbling, but instead on the bodies of the other two, the surging power filled the air, and then a sense of awe filled the place. The power of these two is indeed tyrannical. Yuan Feng's face was ashen, and a trace of paleness appeared on his cheeks. He obviously suffered a lot of damage. In addition to the obstruction of the water area under his feet, his thunder power dropped significantly. Failure is only a matter of time. Suffer to death. After a while, the two of them didn't hesitate, and the sharp attack on their palms was like a sharp blade, roaring directly at Yuan Feng. Thunder Crane Barrier. Yuan Feng didn't dare to take it lightly when he saw such a tyrannical attack from the two. The silver thunderbolts all over his body shook violently, and for a while, an indestructible silver thunder wall emerged around his body. The Thunder Crane Barrier is like a fortress, completely surrounding Yuan Feng's body, and around him, there are circles of thunder, pushing his breath to the extreme. Boom. With a sound, Xu Xian and Li Yuan attacked and landed on Yuan Feng's thunder barrier, and a harsh sound filled the void. Thunder wall, break it for me. After blinking, looking at the dense cracks on the thunder barrier, Yuan Feng did not have any hesitation. He squeezed his palm suddenly, and the thunder barrier exploded directly like fireworks. The energy turned out to make the domain of the water domain tremble slightly. Yuan Feng, give me death. Although the sound and energy of the explosion of the thunder barrier were violent, it didn't block much time in front of the two who were also in the middle stage of the 6-star fighting immortal. When the two reacted, the bright fluctuations suddenly appeared emerge. Damn it! Yuan Feng naturally knew that he was no longer the opponent of the two of them, so he had no choice but to blow up the thunder barrier and try to escape from here. Unfortunately, this move was discovered by him, and all the way back was immediately cut off. The corners of Feng's mouth and heart became hot, and a crazy thought filled out. Death. The two of them naturally didn't want to let him go. Looking at Yuan Feng, who was so ill, the dark brown Do Qi and the cyan Do Qi emerged together, and immediately turned into a sharp energy blade, pointing directly at Yuan Feng with a sharp spearhead. Rich. The combined force of the two 6-star fighting immortal mid-stage powerhouses is so tyrannical, but it is suffocating. Looks like this is a fate. However, Yuan Feng's strength is now weak and his breath is sluggish. The sharp energy blade is constantly expanding in his pupils, but he has no fear, but is somewhat relieved. Boom. Just when Yuan Feng was about to use self-destruction to try to obliterate the two, a 3-color flame suddenly emerged from the void in front of Yuan Feng, and then he slowly wrapped his body. Above the 3-color flame, khaki, cyan, and grey each occupy 1/3, seemingly one body, but in fact, the 3-color flame is filled with 3 completely different forces. And it was this power that calmed the restless fighting spirit in Yuan Feng's body, but Yuan Feng was surprised that this power seemed to be quite familiar. Is it Xiao Yang? Looking up, he found that right above the domain, a thin figure stood on top of it, and a black vortex appeared around him. Sorry, Captain Yuan, I'm a little late. Xiao Yang waved his hand at will, and his speed immediately soared, heading towards Yuan Feng's side. Damn chopsticks, actually destroying my domain. Li Yuan couldn't help scolding, looking at the void where the bumps suddenly disappeared above the entire void. Li Yuan is originally a water attribute, and this domain is his water domain. The special effect of his domain is that he can ignore part of the damage, which greatly reduces the power of Yuanfeng's thunder, so he is defeated. Xiao Yang Shaoxia, hurry up, why are you? Seeing Xiao Yang being so reckless, Yuan Feng couldn't help but hurriedly said. Captain Yuan, don't worry. Seeing Yuan Feng's hurried expression, Xiao Yang slowly came to his side and smiled. Little bastards, courting death. Seeing this, Xu Xian and Li Yuan didn't worry too much, but smiled slightly. However, at this time, Xiao Yang's body was filled with the phantom of the fighting soul, and the three-color flames surrounded him like an elf. Even the arms, the strange colors and the strange scales, made people feel chills. The most important thing is Xiao Yang's current strength, the peak of the 6-star Dozian early stage. That's right, not the original 5-star fighting immortal middle stage, but the peak of the 6-star fighting immortal early stage after the soul-swallowing flame technique skyrocketed. In addition to the many means of fighting spirit and dragon transformation, and the midterm powerhouse of the 6-star fighting fairy can also fight. The peak of the 6-star fighting immortal initial stage? What the is going on with this guy? Xu Xian's attack was meant to be a random attack, but they found that Xiao Yang could easily break it, and immediately hesitated. The peak of the 6-star fighting immortal early stage? Yuan Feng, who was already anxious, shrank his pupils and wondered when he heard the words. How could it be possible? In an instant, Yuan Feng couldn't help muttering when he sensed the dazzling fluctuations in Xiao Yang's body, which was indeed the peak of the early stage of 6-star fighting immortals. Captain Yuan, leave it to me next. 2 6-star fighting immortal middle stage. After Xiao Yang finished speaking, the corners of his mouth couldn't help licking, and immediately a terrifying aura like a death filled out. Even a pink field can easily completely replace Li Yuan's water field. Monster. This guy is definitely a monster. Li Yuan, do it. Seeing such a terrifying Xiao Yang, Xu Xian's face finally changed obviously. At this moment, Xiao Yang truly posed a deadly threat to the two of them. That feeling was no less than that of the late-stage 7-star fighting immortals. This guy is so terrifying. Seeing Xiao Yang standing here like a of war, the corners of Yuan Feng's mouth couldn't help but become dry. Who would have thought that this guy who looked the most insipid was their group? The most powerful being among people. Until now, Yuan Feng only vaguely knew that this guy may have a very deep relationship with Queen Hao Enaya. Thousands of water prisoners. In an instant, Li Yuan's body filled with dazzling water attributes, and a loud shout resounded throughout the void. Acacia Flame Territory. After a while, Xiao Yang roared. The Acacia Flame domain is filled with a very special Acacia power, and the special effect of this domain is to increase one's own level of strength and weaken the enemy's level of strength. How could it be possible? With Xiao Yang's voice, the power of the 2 Xu Xian instantly dropped from the middle stage of the 6-star Dozian to the early stage of the 6-star Dozian, but it was Xiao Yang's power that easily broke through the middle stage of the 6-star Dozian. Boom. After a brief surprise, Li Yuan's hand, a soft-colored water cage, swelled instantly, and immediately shot it away. Squeak. With a sound, Xiao Yang, relying on the strength of the fighting spirit all over his body and the dragon god transformation, gently lifted his arm covered with dragon scales, and waved it towards the water system imprisonment. How could it be possible? Seeing Xiao Yang dissipating his attack so easily, Li Yuan's face couldn't help but turn ugly. Rock Thorn. After a short while, countless khaki yellow rocks suddenly filled Xiao Yang's body from the bottom, and the sharpness might be able to easily obliterate Xiao Yang. Rock Breaking Heaven Burial. Seeing such a tyrannical giant thorn in the rock, Xiao Yang's figure jumped suddenly, and immediately, a khaki flame filled his body, and then a tyrannical suction force directly sucked these rocks together. A steady stream of round rocks turned into a mush, but the destructive power that filled the rocks was stronger than before. Give it back to you. After a few breaths, Xiao Yang snorted coldly, and slapped his palm viciously at him. Suddenly, the huge rock condensed by the shattered heaven burial brought an unstoppable aura, chasing after the two of them. Bang bang bang! Xu Xian and Li Yuan joined forces at the same time, and the dazzling fighting chi gathered in front of them, forming a tyrannical defensive light shield, which barely resisted Xiao Yang's attack, but it is so, two people are also a little palpitated by this terrifying fluctuation. The guy in the middle stage of the 5-star fighting immortal, who used to be able to easily kill himself, but today his strength has skyrocketed, and his combat power is even more abnormal. Xiao Yang, young warriors, these two are very strong. I will stop one and kill him as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the elders of the Senate find out, our situation may be. Man, Yuan Feng, who had regained some grudge, said. Xiao Yang's current strength and combat effectiveness have indeed increased exponentially, but Xu Xian and Li Yuan are both old, so although they have been defeated, they have been maintaining their battle situation, and once Xiao Yang improves his strength, the secret method when the time comes. The results are self-evident. Okay. When Xiao Yang heard the words, he was overjoyed immediately. His current situation was indeed what Yuan Feng thought, and in order not to disturb the strong men of the Senate, he did not dare to use too much of the power of Shenyang for a while. The power that Yang currently controls is not enough to truly threaten the six-star fighting immortal powerhouse, so it is deadlocked. Xu Xian. In the pink field, a smear of pink liquid separated Yuan Feng and Li Yuan away. Xiao Yang licked the corner of his mouth, became hot, and laughed. Humph. It's just a waste with the help of a secret method. When I arrest you, I'll see how mad you are. Rock armor. For a time, there were only himself and Xiao Yang here. A khaki yellow rock appeared on Xu Xian's body. Immediately, under Xiao Yang's gaze, it turned into a khaki yellow rock armor. The rock armor was filled with a trace of light. The special texture of the silk soul beast seems to indicate its extraordinariness. Seventh layer breaking the sky ruler. Move the sky ruler. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang was thoughtful, and the ancient fire ruler in his hand slashed directly at it. The seemingly ferocious flame ruler did not leave any traces on the rock armor. Instead, it was as innocuous as playing a house. Now, it's your turn. Giant rock blade. Seeing Xiao Yang's dazed look, Xu Yun laughed loudly, and a delicate knife appeared in his hand. The knife was like a dagger, but it was sharp in the front and back, with a handle in the middle. A heavy breath came out. It seems that I can only use that. Seeing this, Xiao Yang shook his head helplessly. He didn't have too strong fighting skills, and it seemed quite difficult to fight at higher levels. The battle power of the rank is not bad, but if you go beyond the rank, you will be a little powerless. Rock blade. Zaidu snorted coldly, and immediately looked at Xiao Yang, who was standing quietly in the air, motionless. His figure suddenly skyrocketed, holding the khaki small blade in his hand, and assassinating Xiao Yang's Qianling cover. Such a terrifying offensive. If it is really hit, I am afraid that not dying is also a real serious injury. Yu Ming Tianxian. Just when Xu Xian felt that he would win, the corners of his mouth were slowly rising. His palm was less than 1 meter away from Xiao Yantian's spiritual cover, and a special sound like a bird chirping filled the entire pink field. For a time, being shaken by the sound, Xu Xian's figure and the movements in his hands immediately slowed down. It's over. After the blink of an eye, a huge ruler surrounded by countless flames directly penetrated Xu Xian's body, and immediately a dominating voice filled out. Soul attack. A big mouthful of strange blood overflowed from the corner of Xu Zun's mouth. His face became very pale, and even a trace of fiery red flames continued to burn in the chest penetrated by Xiao Yang. The bones hummed. If a ghost in the ghost world encounters a fatal attack, it will also spew out a ghost source. The ghost source looks like human blood. The general effect is now that Xu Yun's ghost source is lost in a big mouth and disappears completely. It is only a matter of time. No. Seeing this, Li Yuan, who was entangled by Yuan Feng, snarled. His pupils shrank tightly. Xiao Yang, next time. Seeing himself like this, Xu Minute snorted coldly, and then his body became illusory, and the dazzling space power above his palm filled the air. Space scroll. This guy wants to run. Want to run? Immortal fire. Seeing Xu Xian's scene, Xiao Yang snorted coldly, and the dazzling fire of immortality emerged directly, and then easily ignited Xu Xian completely. It directly turned into nothingness, with only a trace of soul origin, which was injected into the body of the fighting spirit. At that time, the powerhouse in the middle stage of the six-star fighting immortal suddenly fell into Xiao Yang's hands. You're going to die too. Seeing Xiao Yang's attack like this, Yuan Feng sneered, and with the help of Li Yuan's absent-minded moment, he let go of the devastating attack and roared away. For a time, the 3 six-star fighting immortal powerhouses guarding Yuanhe were completely smashed here. Xiao Yang Shaoxia, the attitude of the other members of the squad was disrespectful to you before. As the captain, I didn't discipline them well. I'll say sorry to you on their behalf. Kill the 3 of them completely and confirm again and again. After there was no omission, Yuan Feng humbly said to Xiao Yang, until this moment, Xiao Yang had won Yuan Feng's approval with his practical actions. Captain Yuan is very polite. Xiao Yang slapped and smiled when he heard the words. Obviously, he was quite casual about this kind of thing, and he didn't care about it. Xiao Yang's young man is really a hero. He deserves to be the person next to Mr. Hao Enia. Hey. After a while, Yuan Feng couldn't help boasting, apparently thinking that Xiao Yang had something to do with Hao Enia. That's my senior sister. When Xiao Yang heard the words, his head was covered with black lines, and he put away the fighting spirit domain and other means, and said helplessly, saying this, he was naturally afraid of what this guy would say. Master. Senior sister. The original smile on Yuan Feng's mouth suddenly solidified, and a shock filled his heart. Lord Xiao Yang. After a while, Yuan Feng suddenly understood something and knelt down and saluted Xiao Yang. In the Soul Eater domain, the Master of Soul Eater is a well-deserved overlord, and the 3 disciples that the Master of Soul Eater has accepted are all gifted and talented, and Hao Nia is the latest disciple. but also the strongest in strength and talent. And now Xiao Yang is actually called Senior Sister Hao Enaya, and Yuan Feng also understands the fact that Xiao Yang stood beside Hao Enaya before. Xiao Yang is the fourth disciple of the Soul Eater Lord. The disciple of the Lord of Soul Eater, even in the Soul Eater domain, is beyond the existence of the 7 courtyards, so Yuan Feng respects him. After all, a person has a noble status and is extremely powerful, so he can naturally win the confidence of others. Okay, Captain Yuan, now that this place is broken, Captain Yuan should return to his life as soon as possible, and let the large army attack and catch them by surprise. Xiao Yang laughed. Lord Xiao Yang, what about you? Yuan Feng had exactly this plan. After all, the battle situation was changing rapidly, and there should be no hesitation, otherwise the fighter would be fleeting. I have other things to do. Xiao Yang looked at the hall and smiled. That subordinate will go first, sir, take care. After a while, Yuan Feng said slightly, and then he returned on the original road. Although Xiao Yang is only in the middle stage of 5-star fighting immortals, his combat power is amazing. Yuan Feng also rest assured. After a while, with Yuan Feng's departure, the hall became calm and quiet. Xiao Yang stood on the seat in the hall, smiling slightly. Hey, here, it seems to be the space passage to enter the Temple of the Lord of Souls. After a while, Xiao Yang walked around, but stopped in front of a strange book screen in the center of the hall. Become hot. Now that everything is ready, it is only due to Dongfeng. Once the Acacia Broken Enteritis is found, then this trip to the Ghost World will be a complete success. Moreover, according to Xiao Yang's estimation, the war between the 3 forces of the Devil of Light, Li Soul Domain and Soul Devouring Domain will not be truly broken in a short period of time, so he still has time. As for why Xiao Yang knew that there was a space channel to enter the temple in this hall, this was what was left after the death of the 3 6-star powerhouses before. Once Xiao Yang's soul power was probed, Xiao Yang was cheapened in vain. In the entire hall, there is only a trace of strange space power here. This should be the passage to the Senate. Looking at the paintings and calligraphy, there are only some landscapes and nothing else, Xiao Yang said. Crack. With a sound, Xiao Yang raised his palm slightly, and the painting and calligraphy actually twisted like a vortex. Immediately, a dazzling suction force burst out and Xiao Yang was sucked into it. This terrifying force made people uneasy. Xiao Yang did not resist, but his soul force was always vigilant. He also wanted to see where this led to, but due to the long passage of this space, Xiao Yang would not be able to reach the end for a while. The other side. Yuan Feng returned from the original road, but was met by another team. They clashed with the guardians guarding Yuanhe and suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, Yuan Feng took the shot and successfully returned to Soul Eater Domain, which was responsible for attacking the base camp of the Senate. Middle. Sir, the matter has been investigated. 100 miles away from Yuanhe, in the hinterland of the mountains, several tents appeared, and in the tents, several figures stood slowly, their eyes were bright, full of light, above their bodies. The armor and the breath emanating from the invisible are all chilling. Yuan Feng, is what you said true? Listening to Yuan Feng's eloquent words, several strong people present couldn't help but say, Sir, what your subordinate said is true. Yuan Feng said solemnly. General, what should we do? After several adults discussed, they looked at the ferocious man above the top of the camp in the depths, and said cautiously, Today, in order to deal with the Demon of Light, the 5 major courtyards of Li Soul Domain have formed the largest main battlefield outside the 5 major courtyards. In addition, there are 5 battlefields of the 5 major courtyards. The powerhouses in the 5 major courtyards have already been dispatched a lot, so I estimate that there will not be too many 7-star Dozian in the Senate at this time. I'll go with you. Yuan Feng, you've worked hard this time. After this battle is over, you and Sir Xiao Yang's credit will be reported together, said the hideous man. My lord is wise. Yuan Feng felt relieved after hearing the ferocious man speak. Soul Eater has a total of 7 teams, one is responsible for supervising the main battlefield of the Demon of Light and Li Soul Domain, while the other 5 are assigned to attack the 5 major courtyards, and the remaining one is composed of elites, waiting for the rabbit. Waiting for the final battle. However, among these 7 teams, there are hundreds of people, but all of them are 100 and 100, and there are 8-star fighting immortals leading the team in each team. At this time, the hideous man in the tent was the supreme commander in charge of attacking the elders, the Wolf General. At the initial stage of the 8-star Dozian, known for his strength, the strength of a Wolf General, in the Soul Eater domain, is enough to rank in the top 20 with strength alone, which also makes him famous. Let's pass the order, and start trying the Senate tonight. Only the powerhouses below the 6-star Dozian can be dispatched. If the enemy has a 7-star Dozian strong, we will attack, otherwise, the 7-star Dozian and above must not act rashly. Go down. After the Wolf General finished speaking, he said in a low voice. Yes. Everyone heard the words and nodded slowly, but the blood in their hearts also became boiling. The real revenge has already begun, and this kind of beginning can only be rendered by blood. On the other side, the Demon of Light and the many strong men in Li's soul domain were fighting endlessly on the main battlefield outside the 5 major courtyards. Even though the battle had spread for nearly half a year, the outcome was still not completely decided. The other forces are also moving towards all directions. In addition, Li's soul realm adopts space closure methods. Therefore, the battle situation here, the 7 realms and even the Great Thousand World, are kept in the dark for a while, otherwise the Demon of Light will be like this. For half a year, they have been attacked by the powerhouses of the 7 realms. However, if you want to use this method of closing the soul realm, you can only touch the powerhouses of samsara, but there is no such level of power in the soul realm. However, the news that Li's soul realm was sealed off is as strong as a Demon of Light, but how Enya and other powerhouses don't know about it. What is this place? Xiao Yan was still walking in the space passage. There was nothing wrong with it at first, but as time went on, the dark space passage was actually eating away at his own vindictive energy, causing him to lose his temper. Xiao Yan felt quite uncomfortable. I always feel that the situation here is not quite right. Xiao Yan paused temporarily, looked into the distance, and hesitated. I don't know why, with Xiao Yang's soul power, the space passage leading to the shrine of the Lord of Soul seems to be extremely dangerous. Go. After a while, he didn't dare to hesitate, waved his hand suddenly, and slapped directly at a void in the space passage. The void was instantly shattered, and Xiao Yang's figure also followed it. The space channel itself is quite stable, and the practice of leaving halfway like Xiao Yang is quite dangerous, because it will be teleported randomly. With a sound, in the space passage, strange silhouettes bathed in black light appeared one after another, and immediately murmured. Strange, the fluctuations here just now seem a little familiar. The strange man said. Let's go, it will be the temple in a short time, so cheer me up. As soon as the voice fell, the mighty men and horses went directly to the space passage. These guys were filled with ghosts, and they looked like ghost kings. Guys from the kingdom, looking at this look, their goal seems to be the temple of the Lord of Souls. Crash. Xiao Yang turned into a beam of light and fell directly from the space passage, and suddenly came to a rather strange area. This is. Xiao Yang couldn't help being surprised when he just came here. Looking around, the place Xiao Yang was in was a barren golden desert. In the desert, a cloud of grey sand and fog, and even a vague aura, filled the surrounding desert. Here, it should be the shrine of the Lord of Souls. Xiao Yang smiled after confirming it. According to the previous soul exploration, this is obviously inside the temple. The shrine of the Lord of Souls can only be entered by a special formation that exists in the 5 courtyards. The address of the shrine is one of the terrestrial veins in the ghost world. Reckless Desert. This is one of the spiritual veins in the ghost world with abundant energy of heaven and earth. Although it is bathed in the hot desert, the profound energy of heaven and earth hidden under the desert has attracted countless strong people and stayed here for a long time. Cultivation and getting hungry results are twice the result with half the effort. Hey, fortunately there is a map. After a brief glance, Xiao Yang put his palm in his arms and took out a piece of parchment paper with a very delicate texture. He smiled and said, if there is no such thing, Xiao Yang, the chances of Yang looking for acacia and broken enteritis will drop a lot, and it is naturally extremely convenient to work the map. This thing is the previous transaction with you, and it is also a map that records the location of the shrine of the Lord of Souls. After taking out the map, Xiao Yang sat down with his legs crossed and carefully pushed the parchment map away. This is a map, and in the map, it clearly records the most complete reckless ghost desert. On the map, not only the location of the 4 major temples in the south, north and west of the Lord of Souls, but even some quite dangerous or places that require attention are also marked with extremely conspicuous signs. There are actually 4 major temples. Looking at the 4 light spots located in the 4 corners of the parchment map scroll, Xiao Yang murmured. Wang buzzing. At the same time, the already dim core inscription in Xiao Yang's body erupted with dazzling fear. The source of the fear seemed to be the parchment scroll. What's going on? Xiao Yang couldn't help but feel vigilant when he noticed this extremely special situation. Although the power of the formation has been seldom used, Xiao Yang knows that the power of the formation is very powerful, and the fact that the core inscription has such fluctuations is enough to show what kind of terrifying formation there is in this wild ghost desert. The locations of these 4 temples seem to be a little wrong. As Dushan looked at the map scroll in front of him, Xiao Yang suddenly discovered that the locations of these 4 temples seemed to vaguely form an obscure formation. Forget it, let's take one step at a time. After some thought, Xiao Yang could only helplessly shake his head. Now that his strength has skyrocketed, he is still like an ant in the face of Li's soul domain's peak combat power. But no matter what, acacia and broken enteritis must be obtained, and he cannot retreat. In the wild and ghostly desert, the sand fog storm is raging. Such a severe environment has created a dangerous place to stay, but Xiao Yang is wearing a black robe, and his breath is disguised as a ghost in the ordinary ghost world, walking in the wind and sand. In the desert, hey? Isn't this Xiao Yang? After Shurenshi, a strange figure quietly followed Xiao Yang. And Xiao Yang didn't move for a long time before he had to stop, because now in front of Xiao Yang, a violent storm with a size of hundreds of feet suddenly appeared. In an instant, the energy of heaven and earth all around became surging. Xiao Yang saw this, then you can only stop temporarily and wait for the storm to pass. After all, this is the real core of Li Soul domain. Once you use too much power and trigger the strong to take action, then you may end up Wang buzzing. However, Xiao Yang still underestimated the power of the storm. The storm was raging, and there was no grass anywhere it passed, and even the center of the storm seemed to be manipulated by ghosts, so Xiao Yang had to guard against it. Damn, this storm is so strong. Xiao Yang couldn't help but said looking at such a tyrannical storm. Bang bang bang. Just when Xiao Yang was about to use his strength to break the storm, a black shadow emerged from behind Xiao Yang, and immediately pulled Xiao Yang's figure into the desert, and the storm passed slightly. Strange. There is clearly another aura here just now. Is it an illusion? As Xiao Yang disappeared, a black gas muttered to himself in the storm. You are? After a while, Xiao Yang's eyes fell on the black figure in front of him, and he lost his voice. If it wasn't for you just now, I'm afraid Xiao Yang's situation is extremely bad. What's the situation? Xiao Yang couldn't help roaring just now when he was pulled into the dark path at the bottom of the desert by the shadow of the black robe, but fortunately, Xiao Yang found that the man in black robe did not have any malicious intent, and there was even a trace of it. Familiar with the breath, and immediately did not struggle. The two had just entered the area below the desert, and the aura of the man in black robe was immediately concealed by him, and before Xiao Yang could speak, the next scene happened. The black robe Chenying stretched out the jade hand hidden under the black robe and said to Xiao Yang's strokes. The two of them were quiet at first, and they only spoke when the storm above the desert slowly disappeared. It was the patrolling soldiers in Li Soul territory just now. If they found out, I'm afraid that the two of us would be in different places at this time. After a while, Hei Pao Chenying's tense heartstrings loosened a little, and he swayed out. With a lazy look, he came to Xiao Yang and sat down on a rock. You. Xiao Yang was surprised when he saw this scene. Xiao Yang, we meet again. After a while, the black robe Chenying took off the black robe. Showing a very ordinary appearance, he said. It really is you. Looking at the illusory soul body in front of him, Xiao Yang said with a smile, confirming his guess at a glance. By the way, why are you here? Why did you enter here at this time? The two first glanced at each other, and then spoke at the same time, with an unbelievable look in their voices. I'm here to find the Lord of the Soul, and I want to confirm something. Yu did not shy away, and said directly, regarding Xiao Yang, Yu has subconsciously listed Xiao Yang as an existence that is not an enemy. On the contrary, it is a friend-like existence, and it is easy to talk to each other. I said before that I will come here sooner or later, although it's just to look for acacia and broken enteritis. Xiao Yang smiled casually when he heard the words, but there was an imperceptible sadness in his voice. Although I don't know why you are looking for acacia broken enteritis, but acacia broken enteritis does have the effect of the flesh and bones of the living dead, I wish you good luck. Yu said slightly. If that's the case, we might as well work together and get what we need from each other. Hearing this, Xiao Yang laughed. Xiao Yang knew that although Yu was not strong, as one of the few people in the Soul Academy, he was very concerned about the resentment of Lord Li Soul, and the location of the shrine are very familiar to him. For this guy, Xiao Yang is still at ease, so there is naturally no problem with these words. Cooperate? Wait, you have successfully swallowed the undead fire. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Yu didn't have time to think, but found that Xiao Yang's power was no longer what it used to be, and suddenly asked in doubt. This kind of skyrocketing power, unless it devours the undead fire, it is impossible to believe that Potian Yu can only devour the holy flame to increase his power, which has nothing to do with what they are studying. Xiao Yang nodded lightly, raised his palm, and a grey flame emerged. Grey flame, undead fire. Sure enough, it is immortal fire. Seeing this scene, Yu felt a hint of envy in her heart. Originally, according to her teacher's wishes, immortal fire and acacia broken enteritis would both be hers, but helpless Xiao Yang's appearance destroyed her plan. However, Yu was not displeased with this, but rather happy, because the kind of pain that the ghosts need to endure to devour the holy flames made him fearful, and it was the torture that his teacher saw that was like a cripple. It was only because of remorse that he kept her hand when the research was successful, so that now Yu still has the means to threaten the Lord of Li Soul, but Xiao Yang doesn't know it. Okay. I came this time with a mission. This time, either the Lord of the Souls will fall, or I will die. Seeing Xiao Yang's enthusiasm, Yu agreed without hesitation. Since we made an appointment like this, what should we do now? Xiao Yang felt relieved after hearing Yu's promise. Now we are in a wild and ghostly desert, and according to my teacher's information, the three-way powerhouse has been fighting for a long time now. Even in the critical moment of Li Soul domain, the Lord of Li Soul still does not show up. At that time, he was probably hiding in retreat in one of the 4 major temples. We must find his location before we can move on to the next step. Yuo said. My soul power has not sensed his specific location now, but according to my sense, all the temples are filled with the breath of the Master of the Soul. I am afraid that before he starts to retreat, he expects that there will be today, so left some distractions. We only have one chance. Xiao Yang analyzed, and after speaking, his dazzling eyes couldn't help but stare at the quiet shadow under the black robe. A quarter chance. Yu'er heard the words, but smiled slowly, as if not in a hurry. The shrine of Lord Li Sol is divided into 4 major shrines. Among them, the North Shrine is the most powerful in combat, and the West Shrine is the weakest. Yu'er ignored him and continued. What does this have to do with the Master of Soul Li? Xiao Yang was a little confused and couldn't help but wonder. In the past, the Lord of Li Sol basically existed in the North Temple, and the North Temple was the strongest among the 4 temples, and there was also the existence of Li Sol Guard. So, where do you think Lord Li Sol will choose to retreat? After Yu'er finished speaking, a fiery breath permeated from under the black robe. The Master of Li Sol is cautious by nature, and will never put such an important matter in danger. He will definitely choose the safest place, so I think the Lord of Li Sol should choose to retreat in the West Temple. Xiao Yang raised his head and said, for some reason every time he looked up, he looked at the west side of the temple. When Xiao Yang was in the shrine, a trace of flame fluctuations permeated out of Xiao Yang's body, which was obviously the power of Sheng Yang. Oh! Hearing Xiao Yang say this, Yu'er's voice was full of surprise. How is it? Xiao Yang asked. According to my information, if there is no mistake, the Lord Li Sol should indeed be in the West Temple, but I can't say for sure about this kind of thing. You'd better think about it clearly. Once this time fails or the information is wrong, Acacia will die. There is no chance. After a while, Yu'er directly told Xiao Yang the priorities of the matter. It's okay, let's go. I believe the Lord of Li Sol also knows. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Xiao Yang heard that. If he smiled, he didn't have too many worries. Let's go. As soon as the voice fell, the 2 of them formed a team. After disguising, they left the path under the sheath and walked towards the West Temple. After all, this path was only opened at 0 hour and could not exist for a long time. The West Temple, this is the weakest place among the 4 temples, but it is also full of danger, because the strength of the hidden powers in the 4 temples is basically in the ranks of the 7 stars fighting immortals, even among the 4 temples. The weakest in the West Temple, the power of the Temple Master is also full of 8 stars. This time, on the journey to the Temple of the Lord of Souls, it was unknown whether the 2 Xiao Yang were waiting for them, whether it was lovesickness or an unprecedented disaster. This video will end here.